Don't let me die.
Don't let me die. Those were the exact words she said before collapsing into the arms of the most dangerous man in Seoul. Which, let's be clear, was a terrible place to faint if you valued your life. The WTF part? She said it like a joke, breath hitching, lips twitching as if she'd just delivered a punchline instead of a last request. Then her knees buckled. Kang Joon-Seo didn't move fast often. Men moved for him. Guns lowered. Rooms emptied. Deals ended with a single glance. But when a bleeding woman crashed into his chest outside the Black Serpent Club, his reflexes betrayed years of ruthless control. He caught her. Her blood soaked into his tailored suit, warm and unforgiving. "What the hell?" one of his men started. Joon-Seo lifted a single finger. Silence snapped into place. The woman, actually mid-20s, definitely an adult, looked up at him with unfocused eyes and said, "Wow. Either I'm dying, or you're really hot." Then she passed out. Joon-Seo stared down at her face, pale but sharp-featured, lashes too long, mouth still curved like humor was her default survival mechanism. A gunshot wound bloomed darkly along her side, sloppy and recent. Someone had tried to kill her. And somehow, she'd chosen him as her last stop. "Get the car," he said calmly. Inside, his heart did something unfamiliar. It clenched. When she woke up, the first thing she noticed was the ceiling. The second thing was the pain. The third thing was the man sitting beside her bed, sleeves rolled up, dark hair falling just slightly out of place, watching her like she was either a threat or a puzzle. "Okay," she croaked. "So either I'm dead and hell upgraded its decor, or you kidnapped me." Joon-Seo blinked. She smiled weakly. "Please tell me it's the kidnapping. I have plans next week." "You were shot," he said, voice low, controlled. "You collapsed into me." "Ah," she nodded. "That tracks." She tried to sit up and immediately hissed. "Yep. Definitely shot. Not a dream." "You should be afraid," he added. She looked at him. Really looked. Then sighed. "I would be. But you stitched me up instead of dumping me in a river. So I'm guessing you're not my killer." Interesting, Joon-Seo thought. No panic. No hysterics. Just dry logic and sarcasm. "What's your name?" he asked. She considered him. "Do you promise not to Google it and find my embarrassing middle school photos?" A corner of his mouth twitched despite himself. "Yara," she said. "Yara Kim. And before you ask, yes, I'm aware I just bled on a stranger in a very expensive suit." "You know who I am," he said. It wasn't a question. She nodded. "Kang Joon-Seo. Korean Mafia king. Black Serpent Syndicate. Scary reputation. Emotionally unavailable jawline." Silence. Then, softly, he laughed. It startled both of them. "You're not afraid," he said. "I am," Yara replied honestly. "I'm just choosing humor so I don't scream." Respect flickered between them. Over the next 2 days, Yara healed in Joon-Seo's private penthouse medical suite, guarded, protected, and absolutely unimpressed by his intimidation tactics. She flirted with the doctor, insulted the coffee machine, mocked Joon-Seo's brooding posture. "You know," she said one morning, "if you stare out the window any harder, it might confess its secrets." "I'm keeping watch," he replied. "On what?" "Birds." "On you." She smirked. "Careful. That sounded like interest." "It's caution." Sure." Despite himself, Joon-Seo found himself lingering, asking questions, listening. She told him about her job as a freelance translator, how she'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, how someone had followed her after a late meeting. The threat was real. And it wasn't gone. "I'll keep you here until we find who shot you," he said. Yara raised a brow. "Is this protective custody or a very slow first date?" He leaned closer. "You test my patience." She leaned in too, voice soft. "You saved my life." Their proximity shifted something. Heat curling low and dangerous. Too close. Too fast. He stepped back. She noticed. 3 nights later, he took her out anyway. Not publicly. Quiet rooftop restaurant. City lights. Private table. You don't do halfway things, do you? She asked. I do control, he said. And yet here you are feeding me. She smiled when he cut her steak. Their banter flowed easy. Laughter replaced tension. For a moment, he forgot blood, guns, power. He forgot who he was supposed to be. Until his phone buzzed. Target identified. The man who shot Yara was close. Joon-Seo stood. We need to leave. Yara followed, until a shadow moved. A gun lifted. Joon-Seo spun, shielding her, firing once. The attacker fell. Silence screamed. Yara's breath shook. Is this your normal date night? He turned to her, eyes blazing. You should run. She grabbed his jacket. No. I'm not leaving. Danger crackled between them. He looked at her mouth. She whispered, You still owe me for not letting me die. He kissed her, hard, urgent, claiming, before pulling back just enough to say, You have no idea what you just started. From the shadows, a second gun clicked into place, aimed straight at Yara's back. Help me surprise my mum. Click the subscribe button, like, share, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The gun clicked. That sound, sharp, mechanical, final, cut through Yara faster than the cold night air. Joon-Seo moved before she could think. He twisted, dragged her back against his chest, and fired without looking. The shot echoed across the rooftop, glass rattling, city lights blinking like startled witnesses. The second attacker crumpled behind the bar, blood blooming across white marble. Silence followed. Thick. Heavy. Yara realized two things at once. One, she was shaking. Point two, Joon-Seo's hand was still spread wide across her stomach, fingers flexed like he wasn't sure he'd let go yet. You okay? He asked, voice low, urgent. She nodded, then laughed breathlessly. Define okay. Because, emotionally? I'm filing a complaint. He exhaled, a real one this time, and pressed his forehead briefly to the side of her head. The gesture was intimate enough to steal her breath all over again. This ends now, he said. You're not a coincidence. You're a message. Great, she muttered. I always wanted to be punctuation in a crime sentence. He looked down at her, something fierce and unmistakably protective burning in his eyes. You're coming home with me. She tilted her head. Again. Not as a guest. Her pulse jumped. Then what? He didn't answer. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders instead, guiding her toward the elevator as his men secured the rooftop. Yara didn't pull away. Back at the penthouse, the tension finally snapped. Joon-Seo locked the doors himself, checked the security feed, issued orders in sharp Korean that made his men scatter. When he turned back to her, the mask slipped, just enough. You should be terrified, he said quietly. Yara crossed her arms. I am. I'm just also very annoyed. Annoyed? Yes. Because someone keeps trying to kill me, and the only man capable of stopping it also happens to look like he stepped out of a luxury villain calendar. That pulled a sound from him, half laugh, half growl. You don't know what you're dealing with, he said. She stepped closer. Then explain it to me. Don't lock me in a pretty cage and call it protection. His jaw tightened. She could tell. He wasn't used to being challenged. Especially not by someone still healing from a gunshot wound. You were shot because you translated something you weren't meant to understand, he said. A ledger. Names. Routes. Yara blinked. You mean that boring contract I took last month? It was not boring. Well, excuse me for having student loans. Despite himself, he smiled. It was brief. Dangerous. I can keep you safe, he said. But once you're under my protection, there's no half in. She met his gaze. I don't do halfway things either. Something shifted. He closed the distance between them slowly this time, giving her space to step back. She didn't. Their kiss wasn't frantic like before. It was deliberate. Testing. His hand slid to her waist, thumb brushing the curve of her hip like he was memorizing her shape. Yara rose onto her toes, fingers fisting in his shirt. "Careful," she whispered against his mouth. "I'm emotionally fragile and medically stitched." "Then I'll be gentle," he murmured. He wasn't. The kiss deepened, heat pooling low and unmistakable. When he finally pulled back, both of them were breathing hard. "This is a mistake," he said. She smiled. "Say it again, slower. It sounds like foreplay." He groaned softly, resting his forehead against hers. "You're dangerous." "Funny," she said. "Men keep saying that right before they fall." The next morning felt domestic. Yara woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Real coffee. Not hospital-grade sadness in a mug. She padded into the kitchen wearing one of his shirts, far too big, sleeves rolled. Joon-Seo stood at the counter, hair slightly damp, sleeves rolled again, clearly a theme. "You cook?" she asked. "I survive." She leaned against the island. "Impressive. Do you also own a personality outside of brooding?" He slid a cup toward her. "You haven't run yet." She took a sip. "I don't run from men who make good coffee." They spent the morning talking, really talking. She teased him about his obsessive cleanliness. He learned she had a habit of naming inanimate objects. The toaster was called Greg. He didn't question it. That afternoon, he took her out again. Disguises. Sunglasses. A quiet street market across the river. "This is a date," she said, biting into a skewer. "You can't deny it." "I can," he replied. She bumped his shoulder. "You paid for my food. That's romance." He watched her laugh, free and bright despite the danger, and something in his chest tightened painfully. This woman was a liability. And he wanted her anyway. That night, the truth came out. "You can't stay forever," Yara said softly from his bed, sheets tangled, her leg thrown casually over his. "I don't belong to your world." Joon-Seo traced a slow line down her arm. "You already crossed into it." She looked at him. "Then promise me something." "Name it." "If this ends badly, don't lie to me. Don't disappear. Don't pretend this wasn't real." He swallowed. "I don't pretend." She kissed him once more, slow and sure. Outside, a car idled too long. A message was being sent. And somewhere in the city, someone decided Yara Kim wouldn't survive another sunrise. Joon-Seo's phone lit up with a single text. "She chooses you. So we choose war." War arrived quietly. It always did. Joon-Seo stood by the window, phone still glowing in his hand, the city below deceptively calm. The text sat there like a blade pressed to his throat. "She chooses you. So we choose war." Behind him, Yara shifted in bed. "If that's another good morning message from your enemies, tell them I'm not a morning person." He turned. She was watching him now, sharp-eyed despite the soft sheets and tangled hair. She could read tension like a second language. "You're smiling," she added. "That's how I know something's wrong." He walked back to the bed and sat, resting his forearms on his knees. "They know about you." She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, just nodded once. "Okay. That's it?" he asked. "Well," she said, propping herself on an elbow, "I assumed I wasn't exactly invisible after getting shot twice adjacent in your presence. What's the plan?" "The plan. That was the problem." "You'll move to a safe house," he said. "Tonight." She frowned. "Without you?" "Yes." "No." He looked at her sharply. "Yara." "You don't get to decide that alone," she interrupted. "I didn't choose you so you could disappear heroically." Something fierce sparked between them. "This isn't romantic," he said. "It's survival." She reached out, fingers curling around his wrist. "Then survive with me." Her touch grounded him in a way nothing else did. He exhaled slowly. "You're impossible." She smiled. "You like that?" The safe house wasn't what Yara expected. No cold concrete bunker. No flickering lights. It was a renovated hammock tucked behind a private garden, quiet and warm, guarded but peaceful. "This feels like a place people fall in love," she said, stepping inside. Joon-Seo closed the door behind them. That won't happen. She turned, eyebrow raised. Too late. The days that followed were strange and perfect and terrifying all at once. They cooked together. Burned rice. Argued about music. He taught her self-defense basics, how to break a grip, where to strike if cornered. She surprised him with how fast she learned. You're enjoying this, she teased, flipping him onto his back during practice. He stared up at her, breathless. Get off me. Make me. He did. They laughed until it turned into kissing, and kissing turned into heat that left them tangled on the floor, his mouth tracing her jaw, her fingers sliding into his hair. They stopped before crossing the line. Barely. At night, they talked. About her childhood. About his rise through violence and loyalty and blood. She listened without judgment. He spoke without armor. One evening, rain tapping softly against the paper windows, he took her on a date. A real one. Candles. Traditional food. A bottle of wine he'd been saving for years. For what occasion? She asked. You, he said simply. She went quiet then, soft in a way that made his chest ache. You scare me, she admitted. I know. But you also make me feel chosen. He reached across the table, taking her hand. You are. The attack came 3 nights later. Gunfire shattered the peace just before dawn. Joon-Seo was out of bed instantly, pulling Yara with him, covering her as bullets tore through paper walls. His men returned fire. Shouts echoed. Basement. Now, he ordered. They ran. The house shook. Smoke filled the air. Yara's heart pounded, but she didn't scream. She stayed with him, hand in his, trusting. Too much. They reached the basement just as an explosion rocked the building. Joon-Seo shoved her behind him. And pain exploded through his shoulder. He went down hard. Joon-Seo. Yara caught him, hands slick with his blood this time. I'm fine, he gritted out. You are bleeding. She pressed hard, breath shaking. No. No, no, no. You don't get to die on me. He looked up at her, dazed, and smiled faintly. Funny. That's what you said. Sirens wailed in the distance. His men dragged the attackers away. Yara didn't let go of him. Later, when the house was secured and his wound bandaged, she sat beside him, fury simmering beneath her fear. This is because of me, she said. No, he said firmly. This is because they underestimated me. And because you care. He didn't deny it. She leaned down and kissed him, slow, desperate, claiming. He pulled her closer with his good arm, heat flaring despite the pain. You could still walk away, he said softly. She rested her forehead against his. I'm not running. I'm staying. With you. His heart slammed painfully. Outside, the war escalated. Inside, something far more dangerous settled between them. Love. As Yara drifted into exhausted sleep beside him, Joon-Seo received confirmation. The enemy had taken something from her past. And they were coming back to collect her future. Yara dreamed of fire. Not the dramatic movie kind, no explosions or slow-motion heroics. Just heat. Crawling. Relentless. The kind that seeps into your bones and refuses to leave. She woke with a start, heart racing, and immediately realized 2 things. 1. Joon-Seo was awake. 2. He was watching her like she was the only real thing left in the room. You stare when you're thinking too hard, she murmured. He didn't look away. You talk when you're afraid. Rude, she said, then softened.
Perfect.
Accurate
I'm so
but
glad
rude.
we're here together.
The safe house had been abandoned after the attack. Now they were somewhere else. Another quiet place, cleaner, more modern, the kind of luxury that tried very hard to pretend violence had never passed through it. His shoulder was bandaged. His expression was controlled. Too controlled. You were talking in your sleep, he said. Oh no, she groaned. Did I confess my undying love for carbs? You said my name. Her teasing faded. Just my name? She asked quietly. Yes. Something about that felt intimate in a way kisses hadn't yet touched. She sat up, pulling the blanket around herself. You got shot because of me. He stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the city again. Always the city. Always the weight of it. I got shot because I chose you, he corrected. She swallowed. That doesn't make me feel better. It should. She slid off the bed and crossed the room barefoot. Why? Because I don't choose lightly. She stepped into his space, close enough to feel the warmth of him, the tension barely contained beneath calm skin. Then don't shut me out now, she said. Talk to me. He turned to her slowly. They found your father. The words landed like ice water. My what? He's alive, Joon-Seo said. And deeply connected to the ledger you translated. Yara laughed once, sharp and hollow. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Her chest tightened. Memories she'd buried clawed back. An absent man, unanswered questions, a mother who never explained. You're saying, she whispered, that my entire life is suddenly Mafia adjacent? Yes. She dragged a hand down her face. Wow. And here I thought my biggest issue was dating emotionally unavailable men. He stepped closer. You're not a pawn. I feel like one. He took her face gently in his hands, forcing her to look at him. You are not collateral. You are not leverage. You are mine because I choose you, not because of who you're connected to. Her breath caught at the word mine. Careful, she said softly. You're saying things that make me want to believe you. I want you to. The space between them snapped. Their kiss was slower this time. Deeper. His hands slid down her back, grounding, reverent. She kissed him like she was anchoring herself to the present, to him. When they finally broke apart, her forehead rested against his chest. This is insane, she murmured. Yes. I could get hurt. You already are. She looked up. And yet. And yet, he echoed. He took her out again that night. Not because it was safe. Because she needed to feel normal. They walked through a private art gallery after hours. She mocked a painting worth more than her apartment. He told her which ones were fake emotions dressed as talent. You're terrifyingly cultured, she said. I had to learn how to read people, he replied. Art helps. They ended the night on a balcony overlooking the river, wine between them, city humming below. You ever think about quitting? She asked. The Mafia thing. Running a bakery or something. He smirked. I don't bake. You could learn. He watched her laugh, and for the first time, imagined a life that didn't end violently. Later, back at the penthouse, the restraint finally cracked. The door barely closed before he had her pressed against it, mouth at her neck, breath hot and controlled and barely restrained. Tell me to stop, he said. She threaded her fingers into his hair. If I do, will you listen? No. Then don't ask. They moved together like gravity, hands exploring, teasing, heat building slow and delicious. He kissed her like she was precious and dangerous all at once. She laughed softly when he growled against her skin. So, she whispered, this is what dating a Mafia king feels like? This is what dating me feels like. They stopped before it went too far, breathless, wrecked, foreheads pressed together. Soon, he murmured. She smiled. I'm holding you to that. The next day, everything went wrong fast. Yara was alone for 12 minutes. That was all it took. She stepped into the hallway to grab coffee. Someone grabbed her from behind, efficient, trained, silent. A hand over her mouth. A needle at her neck. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was fury. Joon-Seo would burn the city for this. She woke restrained. Dim room. Cold floor. A man standing in the shadows. You look like him, he said calmly. But you belong to me too. Her heart pounded, but her voice stayed steady. You should have killed me, she said. Because he's coming. The man smiled. That's the point. Across the city, Joon-Seo watched the security feed cut to black, and whispered her name like a vow of vengeance. Yara woke to darkness, pain, and the deeply inconvenient realization that she was still alive. Which was annoying, because whoever had taken her clearly had a plan. and plans usually didn't include letting the captive stay conscious long enough to think. Her wrists were restrained behind her back, not painfully tight, but deliberate. Professional. Her ankles were free. A calculated mercy. Or a test. The room smelled like concrete and disinfectant. Somewhere nearby, water dripped in a slow, mocking rhythm. She took a breath. Another. Okay, Yara. No screaming. No panic. You don't give men like this the satisfaction. A shadow shifted. The man from before stepped forward into the dim light. He was tall, composed, dressed too neatly for a place like this. His face carried the same sharp lines as Joon-Seo's, but colder. Less restraint. Less humanity. You're calmer than I expected, he said. She lifted her chin. I've had worse first dates. He smiled faintly. Still joking. It's a coping mechanism. You should try one. Therapy maybe. He crouched in front of her, studying her face. You know who I am. I'm guessing. Rival syndicate, she said. Emotionally repressed. Probably a control freak. His smile widened. I'm Kang Min-jae. Her stomach tightened despite herself. The brother, she said quietly. Yes. She exhaled slowly. Wow. Family dinners must be awkward. Min-jae stood. You were never meant to be involved. Funny, she shot back. That's what everyone says right before they involve me. You translated information that exposed routes I controlled, he continued calmly. Your father helped build that system. Her chest ached. I don't know him. But he knows you. That hurt landed deeper than fear. Your bait, Min-jae said. And your leverage. She met his gaze without flinching. You're wrong. Oh. I'm not leverage, she said steadily. I'm a mistake. Because he won't negotiate for me. Min-jae studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed softly. That's where you're wrong. Across the city, Joon-Seo was already in motion. The moment the feed went black, something inside him snapped. Clean, sharp, irreversible. No hesitation. No doubt. He tore the city open methodically. Every informant. Every safe house. Every whisper of Min-jae's movements. Men scrambled afraid, not because he raised his voice, but because he didn't. His lieutenant hesitated once. If this is a trap. It is, Joon-Seo said coldly. And I'm walking into it. Because Yara wasn't a pawn. She was his. And they had touched what was his. Yara was moved at dawn. Blindfolded, guided, but not dragged. Min-jae wanted her lucid. Wanted her to understand what she represented. She memorized everything anyway. Steps. Turns. Air changes. You're not afraid, Min-jae observed as they stopped. I am, she replied. I just refuse to give you the satisfaction. He removed the blindfold. They stood in a high-rise apartment overlooking the river. Tasteful. Expensive. Almost peaceful. This is where it ends, he said. She walked to the window slowly, testing the room with her eyes. You really like theatrics. I like closure. She turned to face him. You're going to lose. Because of love. He scoffed. No, she said softly. Because you underestimate how angry he gets when someone hurts the woman who taught him how to laugh. Something flickered in Min-jae's eyes. That was when the first explosion rocked the building. Glass shattered. Alarms screamed. Min-jae cursed, reaching for his gun. Yara moved. She slammed her heel into his knee, ripping her wrists free as the zip tie snapped. Thank God for cheap plastic, and bolted. Gunfire followed. She ran toward the smoke, toward chaos, because chaos meant opportunity. A hand caught her. And she was yanked hard into a familiar chest. Easy, Joon-Seo's voice growled against her ear. I've got you. Her breath broke. You came. He cupped her face, eyes wild, unmasked. I will always come. He kissed her, right there, amid smoke and danger and shattered glass, like the world could burn as long as she was breathing. Min-jae shouted orders. Joon-Seo pulled back just long enough to whisper, "Stay behind me." She smiled shakily. "You're not getting rid of me that easily." They fought their way out together, back to back, instinctive, lethal, united. Outside, sirens wailed. The city watched unknowingly as brothers faced the end of something ancient and bloody. Later, safe, bruised, alive, Yara sat on the edge of Joon-Seo's bed while he cleaned a cut on her hand. "You're terrible at following instructions," he muttered. "You like me anyway," she replied. He looked up. "I don't like you." Her heart stuttered. "I love you," he said simply. The words landed harder than any gunshot. She swallowed. "Say that again when you're not bleeding." He smiled. "Soon." She leaned in, kissing him slow, deep, promising everything they hadn't dared yet. Outside, the war wasn't over. Inside, neither was their night. As Joon-Seo lifted her into his arms and carried her toward the bedroom, his phone vibrated once more. Final move. "Midnight. One of you won't walk away." The night was dark, thick, and alive with danger. Joon-Seo's penthouse looked calm from the outside, lights dim, curtains drawn, but inside, the air buzzed with something far more electric than fear, anticipation. Every muscle in his body was coiled, ready to strike, but his eyes kept flicking to her, to Yara. She was awake, sitting on the edge of the sofa, one knee drawn up, chin resting on her hand. Her hair fell in waves over her shoulders, shadows playing across her sharp features. "You look like you've been planning revenge for a week," she said, smirking despite the tension. "Do you do that often before breakfast?" He moved closer, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed but every movement precise. "I plan everything." "Everything." She tilted her head. "Including letting me flirt with danger while you brood?" He blinked at her. "You're impossible." "Impossibly alive," she corrected, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You realize I survived 2 attempts on my life already. That gives me bragging rights." He studied her, every detail, every glint in her eye. His chest tightened. "And still reckless." "Risk is my brand," she said lightly. Then her smile softened. "But I'd rather be reckless with you than safe anywhere else." Joon-Seo's eyes darkened. Heat pooled low in his chest, a mix of protectiveness and something far more dangerous. He crossed the room, closing the distance, and crouched slightly so he was level with her. "You know that tonight will be dangerous," he said quietly. "Not just for you." She laughed softly, a sound that both eased and taunted him. "You think I'm worried?" "No. I'm worried for you." He reached out, fingers brushing the back of her hand. "Then stay close. Do not let go. Not for a second." She held his gaze, daring him to back down. "Try me," she whispered. Minutes later, the city erupted in chaos. Min-jae had made his move. Joon-Seo had expected it, but expectation didn't soften the impact when gunfire tore through the streets, engines roared, and shadowy figures moved with lethal precision. "Get down!" Joon-Seo shouted, grabbing Yara as a deafening explosion shook the building. They hit the floor, the tremor rattling the windows, glass sprinkling the polished floor. Dust and smoke filled the room. Her heart raced, not with fear exactly, but with an adrenaline that pulled them impossibly closer. "You always show up in my life to complicate it," Yara murmured against his chest, arms instinctively wrapping around him. "And yet you choose to stay," he replied, voice low, a growl under the words. She tilted her head, letting her lips brush his ear. "Because you make life worth it." His hands slid down her back, gripping her firmly. "Don't speak like a poet. Speak like a survivor." She laughed softly, the sound ragged but warm. "I'm surviving with you, Joon-Seo. That counts, right?" The fight moved to the rooftop. Joon-Seo led Yara through smoke and chaos, his body shielding hers, movements fluid, lethal. Every instinct he'd honed as the king of the Black Serpent was focused not on dominance, but on one fragile, fierce truth, keeping her alive. Min-jae was waiting, calm, calculating. His gun trained on them both, but Yara's mind raced faster than bullets. "I can help," she said suddenly, tugging free a small knife she'd hidden in her boot. "Distract him." Joon-Seo grabbed her wrist. This isn't. I'm not a damsel, she interrupted, eyes blazing. I'm a fighter. And you're not letting me be helpless again. He hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But stay behind me. She smirked. I will. But I can't promise I won't elbow someone in the face. Together, they advanced. Fire reflected in their eyes. The city around them became a blur of sirens, neon lights, and the hiss of gunfire. Yara ducked instinctively, rolling past his leg, then pivoted with precision, forcing Min-jae to shift his aim. Joon-Seo moved like shadow and steel, controlling every angle, disarming and disabling, but always keeping Yara in his periphery. Their teamwork was dangerous, seamless, intoxicating. You're insane, he muttered through gritted teeth as she flipped aside a shot aimed at him. And you love it, she replied, voice teasing even as adrenaline surged. He growled low in his throat, grabbing her by the waist and hauling her behind cover just as bullets shredded the wall they had been standing behind. You're insane, he repeated, voice rough, but this time it was laced with admiration, and something far more dangerous. She leaned close, pressing her cheek to his chest. I told you I survive with you. He exhaled slowly, hand resting against the small of her back. And I can't survive without you. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. In chaos, time stretched and folded like the city itself. Eventually, they cornered Min-jae on the helipad of a skyscraper. Wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of rain and smoke. You can't win, Joon-Seo said, voice steady but low, almost intimate. Give up, and I won't hurt you more than necessary. Min-jae's eyes flicked to Yara. Let her go. She's the key. Joon-Seo stepped in front of her, chest forward. She's not a key. She's a choice. And I choose her. Yara felt heat climb through her chest at those words. Simple, declarative, fierce. And if I don't? Min-jae growled. Joon-Seo's hand slid down to hers, fingers threading together. Then you'll have to go through both of us. She squeezed his hand, pulse syncing with his. Then let's go, she whispered, voice low but daring. Together, they moved. One side of her brain analyzed every angle, every bullet trajectory. The other melted under his presence. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word from him pulled her closer, binding her in ways danger and adrenaline could not sever. The final confrontation was chaos distilled. Shadow, movement, heat, adrenaline, and longing all compressed into a single, cinematic moment. Joon-Seo fought with precision, Yara with cunning, and together they cornered Min-jae, forcing him to retreat, or die trying. And then it was over. The rooftop quieted. Smoke rose from the city, mingling with early morning fog. The threat was gone, for now. Joon-Seo collapsed against the railing, arms around Yara. She climbed onto him, straddling lightly, brushing her lips across his jaw, then his mouth. You okay? She whispered, hands roaming over bruises he didn't bother hiding. I'm fine, he said roughly, then admitted, I'm not fine. I'm not fine when you're in danger. She smiled against his lips. Then stop pretending I can be handled. He growled, pulling her closer, heat and hunger mingling with relief. I never pretended, he said, voice low. They kissed, long, slow, urgent, a melding of frustration, love, lust, and exhaustion. Every touch was claim and surrender at once. The city roared below them, but up here, it was only them, fire, shadows, and heat. Hours passed in their own suspended world. When the first light of dawn hit their skin, they finally separated, breaths ragged, fingers entwined. You're impossible, he said again. And you love it, she teased. He didn't deny it. Instead, he pulled her against him, forehead to forehead. I love you. And I will protect you. Always. She closed her eyes. I love you too. Even if I nearly die for it every week. The sound of a phone buzzed. Both of them tensed. Joon-Seo picked it up slowly. A message. This isn't over. Midnight. One final move. He looked at Yara, eyes dark and unreadable. They're coming for us. She smiled faintly, hair sticking to her damp face. Then we meet them. Together. His hand slid to her cheek, thumb brushing softly. Together, he agreed. And in that moment, the city below could burn. Because they had each other, and that was a war no one could ever win against. As night descended again, the final enemy was already moving. Somewhere in the shadows, a single shot waited, not for him, not for her, but for the fragile, fiery thread that bound them together. The wind howled around the penthouse balcony as Joon-Seo and Yara pressed close, hearts pounding in unison. Every sense was alive, every sound, every shadow, every breath shared between them. "You ready?" he asked, voice low, almost dangerous. She tilted her head, eyes glittering in the moonlight. "For what? To flirt with death again? Because honestly, I do that better when it's just us." "Not this time," he said, jaw tight, eyes dark. "This is the final move. Midnight. Everything depends on it." Her hand slid into his. "Then we go together. Or not at all." He exhaled slowly, leaning his forehead against hers. "I've never backed down from a fight. But tonight, I'm not fighting alone." Her lips curved into that mischievous grin he couldn't resist. "Good. You'd better not try. Or I might hit you." He chuckled softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Try me." And then, without another word, they moved. The city was a labyrinth of lights and shadows as they navigated the streets. Joon-Seo drove, every hand on the wheel steady and precise, Yara beside him, eyes sharp, instincts humming. Neither spoke much. Words were useless now. The danger ahead demanded silence, attention, and trust. "You know," she said after a while, voice low but teasing, "we make a terrible spy duo. I mean, look at us, hands sticky with coffee this morning, hair a mess, clothes probably smelling like smoke." He glared at her briefly. "Focus." "I am focused," she countered. "Focused on you. Focused on making sure you don't accidentally throw me into traffic." He snorted softly. "I think we're past accidental at this point." Her eyes glinted. "Then it's intentional. I like that. Makes it more fun." He shook his head but smiled, a small, dangerous thing. Her humor always disarmed him, even when bullets were flying in their future. The rendezvous point was an abandoned warehouse by the river, a place they had scouted in advance through Joon-Seo's network. Every shadow could hide a gun, every wall a sniper. Yara didn't flinch. She moved beside him, hand lightly brushing his arm. "This is insane," she whispered, a thrill running through her veins. "This is life," he corrected, eyes scanning. "And you chose it." She smiled softly. "I chose you." The words hung in the air, heavier than any weapon, louder than the echo of footsteps in the empty warehouse. Min-jae was there, of course, waiting, his usual composed demeanor hiding the storm beneath. He didn't flinch when they entered. He didn't need to. He knew they were coming. Joon-Seo stepped forward. Yara followed closely, keeping a hand lightly on his waist. "This ends tonight," he said calmly. Min-jae tilted his head. "Do you think so?" "I know so," Joon-Seo replied. "Because I'm not leaving without her." "And you won't," Yara said sharply, stepping forward, defiance burning in her gaze. "I'm not leaving. Neither of us is leaving." The air crackled, tension coiling tighter with every heartbeat. Then it began. Shots rang out. Chaos erupted. Joon-Seo moved like shadow and steel, disarming attackers, evading gunfire, guiding Yara through smoke and debris. Yara moved like lightning beside him, instincts sharpened from months of surviving. Together, they were unstoppable, not because of weapons, but because of trust, chemistry, and sheer will. "You're insane," Joon-Seo muttered as she rolled past a stunned henchman and shoved him into a pile of crates. "And you love it," she shot back, flipping a knife from her boot into a target with deadly precision. He growled low, pulling her back against him as bullets tore through the air. "I need you to survive," he hissed. "I am surviving," she whispered fiercely, pressing herself closer. "And I'm not letting you die either." It was more than a promise. It was a declaration. The final showdown came in the warehouse's center. Min-jae confronted them, expression unreadable. "You shouldn't have come together," he said, voice low and dangerous. "We're not afraid of you," Yara said, stepping forward. We're afraid of losing each other. And I will fight for him. I will fight for us. Joon-Seo's hand found hers, squeezing, grounding. You're mine, he growled, eyes blazing. And I'll die before I let anyone touch you. Min-jae laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Bold words. But one of you will fall. Yara's lips curved in a dangerous smile. Try me. Gunfire, fists, and chaos collided. Yara ducked and spun, landing precise strikes, while Joon-Seo disarmed and disabled, every move synchronized like a deadly dance. Each glance, each touch, each brush of fingers against flesh pulled them closer, not just in battle but in desire. When Min-jae lunged for Yara, Joon-Seo intercepted, pressing her behind him, their bodies flush. Don't move, he whispered against her ear. Heat flared, every nerve alive. I'm not afraid, she replied softly. I'm with you. And with that, they moved as one, relentless, unstoppable, untouchable. Finally, Min-jae stumbled, cornered, and realized he couldn't win. He fled into the shadows, leaving them standing in the wreckage, breathing heavy, adrenaline coursing. Hours later, safe but exhausted, Joon-Seo carried Yara into the penthouse. Every inch of him ached, every muscle tense, yet he couldn't stop himself from touching her, kissing her, holding her as if letting go might undo everything. You're insane, she murmured against his chest, laughing softly despite exhaustion. And you love it, he whispered, fingers threading through her hair. Her hands slid under his shirt, pressing against him, heat mingling with relief. Don't ever let me go, she said softly. I won't, he promised. Ever. Their kiss deepened, slow, consuming, a mix of relief, love, lust, and possessiveness. Every moment screamed the truth they had both been trying to deny. They were each other's home, each other's anchor, each other's danger and salvation. Hours passed in a blur of whispers, touches, laughter, and slow-burning intimacy. By dawn, the city outside was quiet, the storm of violence temporarily passed. But neither of them slept. They stayed wrapped around each other, hearts beating in sync, fingers tracing patterns that only they understood. You're ridiculous, she whispered, voice hoarse. And I love you for it. And you're fearless, he replied. And I love you for that too. But the city never sleeps. A single message pinged on Joon-Seo's phone. He froze. The words were simple, chilling. We're not done. Midnight. One will die tonight. Yara felt the tension spike, hand slipping into his. What now? He looked at her, dark eyes softening only for her. Now, we prepare. Together. She pressed her forehead to his chest. Then we face it. Together. And in that heartbeat, in that touch, in that kiss, they understood something dangerous and beautiful. Whatever came next, they would face it not as king and prey, not as Mafia and target, but as two hearts burning as one. The war outside could rage. The city could burn. Min-jae could strike again. But their fire was stronger. And no one, not bullets, not shadows, not rival syndicates, could ever take that away. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, a shadowed figure moved silently across the penthouse rooftop. The wind carried the faintest whisper, "This ends tonight." Yara shivered, and Joon-Seo tightened his hold on her. The enemy wasn't gone. They were inside. And the final game of survival, love, and fire had only just begun.